Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. And we're absolutely delighted to join this session. Just before we start, I'll do a couple of introductions. So I'll hand over to Faye first of all.
Thanks very much, Susan. Hi, everyone. I'm Faye Winstanley. I'm a people consultant and I work for Midlands and Lancashire Commissioning Support Unit.
Thanks, Faye. And Lynn?
Hi, I'm Lynn Tallantar. I'm Deputy Director of Finance at Midlands and Lancashire CSU. Nice to meet you all.
And I'm Susan Blakey. Faye and I work together. We work in the People Services team. So we've asked people to pop in the chat what makes a good day at work and what makes a bad day at work. So if you want to carry on doing that, that would be great. And Aoife, could you show us the next slide, please? So in today's session, we're going to do a little bit about what makes a good day at work, what makes a bad day at work, and then thinking about how that links to the 6 essential workplace factors and how we might want to think about that when thinking about well-being. Faye's going to cover about whose responsibility is well-being within the organisation, and then thinking about our health and well-being strategy at the CSU, the kind of data that we used. And then Lynn is going to give some real practical examples of what she did within her team, and then Faye and I are going to finish off the session in terms of what we did within the CSU and what that led to in terms of us winning the award. So next slide, please, Aoife. So if you look at some of the details that have been discussed within the chat in terms of what makes a good day at work and what makes a bad day at work. So there's a couple of things in here about a good day at work, feeling achievement, and bad day at work, unstructured things and from left field. That's great. Thank you. And I can see somebody else is typing. So this is a really nice little exercise that you can do with your teams in terms of what makes a really good day at work, what makes a bad day at work, and get post-it notes. And when you separate and start looking at some of these post-it notes, you'll find that often they will, or pretty much always, they will fit into these categories. And this comes from the Health and Safety Executive. And the idea is that there's 6 main areas of work design which can impact on stress levels, and you should manage these properly. And they are resources and communication. So that is about the tools for the job, or that you don't know what's going on. And I'm sure many of us have been in that situation in terms of, oh, but if you'd have told me that, I might have understood that. So that's one factor. Another is about control. As we all know, if we feel if we're in control of the work and how it can be done, that you feel involved and that your ideas are being considered, that makes a difference. Demands, this is all about a balanced workload. And if we all know, if we've got unrealistic workload, the impact on stress levels. Next one is about job security and change. And if you're worried about change and the impact on you, and you're worried about your job security, that can spend quite a lot or take up quite a lot of your time and impact on stress. Work relationships, it's kind of a well-known fact that if you've got a great relationship with your line manager, that makes a huge difference to your well-being, and that can extend to your team as well. I know in my own career, if I feel like I'm part of a really good team where I've got good relationships, definitely some of the times when you're super busy at work, that makes a huge difference, and having that ability to really talk to somebody and trust somebody. The next one is about job conditions and the role. And if you're not sure what your job is, or that bit of lack of clarity in what you should be doing, or you don't have the right skills, again, that can have an impact on stress levels. So I'm going to move on to Faye. Hi, Suzanne.
Good afternoon, you okay? Sorry about my delay.
Don't worry. Thanks. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. Okay, so I am going to talk to you now a little bit about whose responsibility is health and well-being. And the simple answer is it's everyone's responsibility. We can all make a difference, and we all have a responsibility when it comes to looking after our own health and well-being. And it shouldn't really just be one person's responsibility. It really should be that golden thread that runs through everything that we do. after all, we work for the NHS and wellbeing is our business, so therefore it should be our priority. Now, this slide here just illustrates the Igloo model with little Pingu and his family there. And as you can see, Igloo stands for individual, group, leader, organisation, and overarching context. And it's just a really easy way to remember that if you're looking at putting a wellbeing intervention in place, that intervention needs to fit the right level. So for example, if you're a line manager and you have a staff member comes to you in a one-to-one and they tell you something about their well-being that's very specific to them, you could look at putting in some support at an individual level. Or better still, you could start having a coaching conversation so that that individual concerned feels really empowered to take action and starts to explore their own solutions to their well-being. Or you might have looked at your workforce data and you might have seen from your figures that your sickness due to MSK issues are absolutely through the roof. So you might want to consider a group intervention, something really specific just to your area. So Igloo is just a really nice little way to remember that whatever we do around health and well-being, whilst we've all got a responsibility, the interventions that we're using have to fit the right level, because it's not always a one size fits all. And it's not always just about, putting on that Pilates class across the whole organisation. Sometimes we have to drill down a little bit further. Can I please have the next slide? Thank you. So data, sometimes a bit of a dry topic, but actually data is really important when it comes to health and well-being. And we need to make sure that if we're looking at interventions and what level we're inputting those at, we need the data to help us. And we're really lucky in the NHS. We have got a raft of information at our fingertips. And this slide just illustrates some of the sources of information that are available to us to look at when it comes to well-being. And obviously there are more out there too. And to really make sure that your wellbeing interventions are getting the best bang for the buck, you need to start to kind of triangulate all that data. So not just looking at one source, but looking at multiple sources of data. And to really make sure, like I said, that you're getting that kind of bang for your buck, link the data back to the Igloo model. So think about what the data is telling us and what the intervention needs to be to get the maximum value out of it. So data is really powerful when it comes to hotspot areas too. You might be able to put something specific in place to get a quick win. When we were in the pandemic, for instance, here at MLCSU, our data from staff feedback was telling us that people were really, really struggling to take breaks. Not just in certain areas, but that was across the organisation. We found early doors that people were really struggling to get away from the laptops. So very, very quickly, we were able to use that data. We were able to get messages out from our MD, encouraging people to take the breaks. He told us what he did to take the breaks. He really empowered people so that they felt able to take control of their own well-being. And it was a real quick win to address an organisational wide issue. So that's one example of using the data. Another example is our workforce metrics. They show that we have got a higher percentage of females than we do males. And when we started to drill down on that a little bit, what we saw was actually those females are in an age profile where the majority are likely to be affected by either perimenopause or menopause. So we really focused our efforts there. And along with signing up to the menopause pledge, we now make sure that we've got free sanitary products in all of our sites. We have a women's health teams channel that people can use to connect with each other. And we've also, our strategy unit undertook a piece of work on this very topic. So yeah, data is really important. And don't forget, not only will your data help inform where your interventions are, it'll actually help you to measure the success of those interventions too. So you can see if your interventions are having the desired output or if actually you need to rethink where your focus needs to be. So I think data is key when it comes to wellbeing, and it shouldn't be overlooked really. Thank you. I'll hand you over to Lynn for a short while now.
If we can have the next slide, please. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what specifically we did in the finance arena. Sorry, if we could have the next slide, if possible, Aoife, please. Thank you. So I've broken it into lots of different categories. But what I'd say is I'm a health and wellbeing champion. And as part of that, one of the things that I recognise and have seen is what Faye and Susan were saying earlier, is not one size fits all. So you will do things with the team and you will get some people engaged. You might do something different and you'll get different people engaged. And one of the big things that I feel I've learned during this process is don't become disheartened. You know, you might reach out to people and you may not get as much response as you'd really like, or you're questioning whether things are landing. What we've tended to find over time and through discussions at later date is messages do land with people. It's about the right message landing with the right person at the right time. So I'm just going to talk to you about the different approaches we take. So we've found technology has been really important in helping supporting wellbeing and engagement. So we have a dedicated Teams channel to health and wellbeing. We do a Happy Monday post, and different people within the team do that every week, and it can cover any topic at all that they feel passionate about. So I did one, it was my turn this week. The one I did this week talked about anxiety and how sometimes anxiety can look like a person who's very in control and very structured, but it's because all these other things are going on in the background. It allows us through that Teams channel to share things that come out through this programme as well, through the One NHS Finance programme. And it just became a safe space, really, to engage with people in a different way. We also have dedicated Teams channels that we call community channels. So corporately, we have a Teams channel that is for pet lovers. We've got one about baking. We've got one about books and things as well. So again, it's trying to connect people across the organisation too. One thing we do insist on, and we have found it has made a difference, is we ask people in Teams to load a photo of themselves. So rather than if you're sat in a meeting and you're just looking at a set of initials, you're actually looking at a face. And we do actively encourage people to put cameras on as well. It means so much more talking to a person rather than talking to a screen. So we found that, and what we did was our leaders modelled that behaviour and actively encouraged that behaviour from people. We also look to use interactive tools quite a lot. So these are things like Jamboard or Slido, things where people have to engage with you while you're talking, because it's very easy through technology nowadays just to sit there and, you know, emails are still coming in and you're being distracted by them, etc. So again, we found doing that also helps. Corporately, again, we have something called an online staff recognition system, and I'll show you how that looks in a minute. It's dead simple, but it's a bit more of a formal way of sending a thank you to someone or a congratulations or a well done to someone. They can use it in their one-to-one with their managers as evidence. And it's just something that's a little bit more formal. And we touched earlier about how we use video briefings from directors. People love the video briefings, particularly if the directors are really willing to be open and authentic and talk about what's going on in their lives as well. You know, so we have one particular director who quite often talks about challenges of a teenage son, and they always land really brilliantly with people because, you know, it resonates if you've got something similar going on in your life too. So talking about one-to-one support then, clearly we do one-to-ones, we do appraisals, but we've also introduced a couple of other things. So we've introduced something called a weekly check-in. It's really simple. We use Microsoft Flow. So we use tools in Microsoft. And what happens is on a Monday morning, everybody gets an automatic email from me. So I don't have to do anything, which is good because then it doesn't rely on me forgetting. And it just asks one question: how are you feeling today? And you can say you're feeling great, I'm feeling okay, I'm feeling a bit meh, or actually, I'm not great and I'd like a check-in. There's only myself who sees the responses. And if somebody is feeling a bit meh or a bit, I need a check-in, they'll get a one-to-one call from me after that. Quite often it isn't about work. There are other things happening in people's lives. And, you know, the old saying of, oh, you need to leave home at the door, it's totally unrealistic in the current environment, especially when we all, quite a lot of us now, work from home some of the time as well. So sometimes just having that insight from people helps you to understand what's going on. And we've been able to proactively put support in place for some people rather than things becoming an issue and becoming bigger than they need to be. So if we talk about team challenges, we always try and have an active team challenge going on. So our current team challenge is to walk from our offices, I think in Stoke, the Stoke office, to Jerusalem by Easter. So as a team, to do enough steps that gets us there. So far, we're only at Cambridge, but we're making progress. And we've done a whole range of things. We've done things around lighting lights for Diwali. We've done things around Eid as well. And we've widened it to be much more than just steps. So we've made it inclusive for employees who maybe have a disability, and that steps is maybe more challenging. So during Ramadan, we allowed what we called mindfulness sessions, which could be for people who are praying, or because if they're fasting, they maybe don't want to be doing lots of exercise as well. So we include things like mindfulness sessions. You can record your information as either miles or steps. So if you could include a swim or a cycle. So we've tried to make it as inclusive as possible. And we've done a range of different topics. We've done hiding Easter eggs. We've done, like I said, Diwali. We've done something about getting to Mecca. So again, we've tried to make sure it feels inclusive to everyone. I'm really sorry. I did say the dog would bark at the wrong time before we started this, so apologies. I'm just going to ignore him. I've touched on the weekly check-ins already, and we've also done a range of engagement events with staff. So to give you an idea, we've done scavenger hunts, we've done dance classes, we do regular quizzes, we've done origami, we've done desk exercising, Pictionary sessions. We have year-end advent calendars where people can nominate some music that they want to hear at year end and things. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. I was just going to give you a quick example. So this is what we call a jam board. So we always ask people in a team meeting, what have you achieved in the last 2 months? And they can pop up post-it notes and things like that. I think as finance people, it's bred into us to look for what could have been better? So we always start with, well, actually, what have we achieved in the last few months? So again, if we can just click on to the next one, there's a few bits here. This was the staff recognition system that I was talking about earlier. So it's, like I say, it's really simple. It aligns to our values as well. So in the category section, it does align to our organisational values. If we can click on again, please. This was the Monday check-in I talked about. So the one question that gets automatically emailed out and the system collates the results for you. So as you can see, what they get is an email with a link. They click on the link, it takes them to here, and it takes literally under a minute to complete. They just need to select which box they're feeling. If we click onto the next one. And here are some examples of the things that have come out from the away day. So, you know, people will understand at year end when you're getting a bit desperate. So you're going, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen was a choice of some people. We did a photo scavenger hunt. So those are some of the photos you can see. And there's also a photo of the origami session we talked about earlier as well. So if we can have the next slide, please. Finally, I just really wanted to touch on, sorry, Aoife, you can probably click all these. This is some feedback from staff that we actually had about the difference, some of the approaches we've made. And I'll let you read that for yourselves. But also from an organisation perspective, we've seen an improvement in staff survey results, an improvement in absent rates. We've also had people who've actively told us they've got an improvement in their health. And, you know, we've had an example of an individual who needed to reach a certain BMI target to go for IVF, and getting involved in some of the challenges helped her to do that. But probably one of the biggest things we've done is we've set up the grassroots programme of staff engagement. So we have something called STAR. It is run by the team. For the team, so sorry. It's run by the team for the team, and they basically decide what they want to do. They run something around recreation, they run something around education as well, and they decide what they want to do, and they come to management and tell us how they want to do it. And that has made a huge difference to the people who get involved in that as well. And it's felt a lot more like it's owned by the team rather than, oh, it's management doing this to people, leaders doing it to people. It's felt like it's come from the team. So that was everything from me. So can we have the next slide, please? Not sure who I'm handing over to, sorry.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm just going to talk a little bit now about what we did basically as an organisation. And Lynn's just run through really nicely some things that she's done at a local level in her team. So at that group level in terms of the Igloo. But actually, from a corporate point of view, why did we as an organisation really kind of ramp up our wellbeing offer? And I guess like most organisations, it was the pandemic really that forced us into positive action. We already had a wellbeing offer in place, but we knew that we needed to really strengthen it and put more focus on wellbeing. So initially, throughout the pandemic, we just did something really simple, and we did a little temperature check, 5 short, sharp questions, easy for me to say, just to understand how people were feeling. And one of those questions was a free text question, really. So people could type whatever they felt that they needed to, and if people needed a call back, we could give them a call back. But what we did was we used that information and we used it to see where the gaps were, and we fed back to people in a you said we did approach so that people could see that we were actively listening and we were actually acting on what they were telling us to really keep them engaged. So one example, one of the common themes in the early stages of the pandemic that came out of that free text was trying to work with children at home. It was a real nightmare for many people, myself included. So what we did was we pulled a load of advice and information together for staff and managers on working flexibly. We set up Teams channels. We provided advice on our intranet site. We signposted people to other services. We did as much as we could to support whatever was coming out in that temperature check. And like I said, whilst the temperature checks were initially set up to check in on people during the pandemic, it just naturally morphed into the basis of our wellbeing strategy, really. And we used the information that people were telling us in these checks, and we used our data as well. And we used the NHS wellbeing framework that you can see on the slide there. And we made that unique to us. And yes, we focused initially on those 3 enablers of leadership, data and environment, and the health interventions of mental health, MSK and healthy lifestyles. And we took that, and as you can see, we developed a high level plan on a page, but we put our own local spin on it. We really did listen to what people were telling us. So whilst it was a national framework, we took it down to a local level, setting it at the right context, really trying to focus on prevention and empower self-management. And over time, this initial strategy grew and developed. And we then used the new framework that NHSE had developed, which was linked to the people plan. And we measured ourselves against it, looking at where we were strong, where we could add value, but actually what was important to our people within our organisation. There was no point in us trying to work on something that just wasn't going to get any tangible benefits. And then from that, we continued to develop our wellbeing offer. We used our workforce data, we engaged with people, as I've already said, and we really did hone in on what was important to our people. So, for example, some of the things coming out was people really struggling financially. So we really upped our game in terms of what's our financial offer look like. And by putting our people at the centre of the strategy, we made it come to life. And it wasn't just a policy that was written on a bit of paper that gathered dust on a shelf. It was a living and a breathing document that changed over time to make sure we were continually supporting people. So linking that back to the Igloo model, we really considered what was happening nationally in that overarching context, but we really honed in on our local things as well, responded to local needs, very much fulfilling the elements of the people promise and really keeping our people at the centre of what we were doing. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. So just a quick one for this. As I said, over time, the initial strategy grew and it developed. And this is actually the current framework that NHSE developed for wellbeing. It's linked to the people plan. And what we did when this came out, we measured ourselves against where are we at against this model, which is quite different from the old one. And we looked at where we were strong and we looked at where we could have value, but we looked at what was important to people, because as I said before, absolutely no point trying to work on something where people weren't going to get any tangible benefits from it. So although that framework's a generic one, we used all our data and we made it really specific and we made it work for us. Next slide, please, and I will hand you back quickly to Susan. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, as Faye and sort of Lynn alluded to, what we found is that there's a wealth of information on health and wellbeing. So I think we spent quite a bit of time. We've got a staff intranet called Nugget, and we spent quite a lot of time trying to work out where we could make sure that things were really clear and easy for people to find. Because when we did a lot of the surveys, we found that people said, we'd really appreciate this. And we think, oh, actually, we've already got it. So it goes back to Lynn's thing, thinking, don't be disheartened. So some of it is just really promoting it and making sure it's really accessible. So we thought the easiest way would be really thinking about what comes under sort of physical well-being. And so that includes some of the stuff that Lynn talked about. And we did a bit of a Fit in 5 blogs and about getting people to write about how they kept fit, Healthier You, and we had some health and wellbeing champions, of which Lynn's one of them. We did mental wellbeing. We've got a team of mental health first aid trainers, which we call our Let's Talk champions, and all sorts of different services that people can access, and just trying to make it really easy, because actually sometimes when you want to access this support, it's just trying to make it clear and how they can be supported. Financial well-being, Faye did a lot of work and we were really proactive on this. So actually we were able to really offer some support and help for people, as Faye's mentioned. And then that was also, as we can kind of all recall, we had a huge range of support nationally, and we really wanted to make sure that people could access it, because as we've all said, it's not a one size fit all. I might think, actually, I really want to focus on my physical well-being and somebody else wants different. So we're just trying to make sure that that could be easily accessed. And really that little bubble in the middle is just trying, as we've tried to hopefully try to convey within this presentation, is we have to put our people at the heart of it and really work out, well, what do you need? Next page. And this led to a really lovely accolade. Was not this Christmas just gone, the previous Christmas, is that we won Best Health and Wellbeing Strategy through the HR Excellence Awards. And one of the things when we looked at our submission and the feedback we got from the judges was that they felt that we used the data, which we absolutely did, and kept going back to it, but we did it on, we don't have a big health and wellbeing department. We have to use the people in the team. And as Lynn said, this isn't just about managers and leaders, it's about people and the grassroots initiatives. It's about managers, it's about directors opening up, because everybody is affected by health and well-being, and so we wanted to make it, as Faye's alluded to with the igloo model, it's everybody's responsibility. And actually, if everybody gets involved in health and well-being, wow, that's really powerful. And that's one of the things we wanted to really, you know, bring out. So we were absolutely delighted to have won that award. But as I say, some of the key things that I think helped us do with that was around the data, making it bespoke, and just getting absolutely everybody involved in the organisation, which was brilliant. That's the end of our presentation. Are there any questions? If not, you've got our details, and I know that Aoife's going to has recorded this session. We've got the slides. Please do reach out to either Faye, Lynn, or myself. We'd be very happy to talk to you. I think you can guess that we're quite passionate about this as 3 individuals, so we're very happy to talk to you. Yeah, and just to say thank you so much for inviting us. We've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks very much for that. It was